Phthalo blue has a reputation for ruining paintings. It's too strong, too intense. It looks artificial. But if you understand how to control it, it becomes one of the most versatile blues on your palette. It can create subtle blues, even grays and deep blacks. In fact, I painted this entire still life using mostly phthalo blue. So let me show you how. Here's what it looks like straight from the tube. The trick to working with this is being able to neutralize it. So I have burnt orange on my palette, and if I add just a little bit of this to the blue, you can see that's a much duller blue. It's darker and it's less saturated. If I continue to add the burnt orange to the blue, it actually turns black. And you can test it out here. That looks like it needs a little bit more burnt orange. If I add a little bit of water to it, you can see that's pretty neutral. This is transparent, but I can also add white to this and use it to mix gray. So this is almost a pure gray, and I made it from this phthalo blue. If you don't know how to neutralize phthalo blue like this, then a tube might last you a couple years because you use it so sparingly. But when you know how to neutralize it, you can get a wide range of blues, and you can even get totally neutral grays. The other benefit is that when you paint a grayscale image, you can get very lively grays from this. If I were to use black to mix all these grays, it would look very sterile. It wouldn't have much warmth or coolness to it. But if you look at my reference photo, you can see that this image is made up of different kinds of grays. If you look at the mug, it's more of a cool gray. There's some blue in there, whereas the background is a warmer gray. So that's the other difference here is, if I were to use black, I would only have two variables. It'd be white and black. That makes things simpler, but with this setup, I could also tilt it more towards the warm side or more towards the cool side, and that gives me much more control. Later in the video, I'll show you exactly which pigment this is and how to find it in other brands of paint. I could also demonstrate how to mix this color from other pigments, but I find that this is a really good shortcut because these colors are exact mixing complements. I'll get started by mixing a larger quantity of the black, and then I could use that to mix a gray. So I grabbed a little bit of the phthalo blue and the burnt orange, and then I can see where I'm at. If I spread it out thin, I can kind of get a sense if it's warm or cool. It looks a little bit on the warm side, so I'll add a little bit more of the phthalo blue. And I do think the phthalo blue has more tinting strength. As you can see, it sort of immediately made that more cool. You really want to mix them together really well because you don't want to have pockets of warm or cool colors in here. Now I can add a little bit of white, and it does make a fairly decent neutral gray. Here's the middle gray. I think what I'll do is mix another gray that's a little bit lighter. So I'll move this up and then add some more white in here. So these are some basic grays that I mixed up, but I'll probably have to add some color to them to make them match the subject matter. I think the tea kettle has some areas that are more blue, and I definitely need like a cooler gray for the coffee mug. All right, so let's get started. When you sign up for my free email newsletter, you'll gain access to all my reference photos, including this one. You can use them to practice painting and try out these different techniques. So I'm starting at this top right corner, and I'm just gonna put the background color in real quick. I usually adjust the background once I get the other colors in, so I really don't fuss too much with this. So if I need to make it lighter, I can just dip into this color down here and then blend it in. And you can tell I don't care about wrecking the white canvas with colors like this because I can easily just paint right over them. That's one of the benefits of acrylics, is that it doesn't take that long for them to dry, so you can just paint right over them. I'm thinking that what I should do is mix up like the warmer color on the left-hand side. I already have the middle color, which is pretty neutral, and then there's a lighter color. So if I have like three colors to work from, I can just dip into them and blend them as I go. So for that color on the left, I'll just grab more of that burnt orange and mix it into this darker gray color. I'm comparing it to the photo on the iPad screen. I did try printing this out, and the colors weren't as neutral as they need to be. So I'm relying more on what I see on the screen. And that has its own problems because a computer screen can get much brighter than what you can get with white paint. So you sort of have to take that into account. Okay, that's not too bad. You can see it's a little bit warmer than this middle gray. It's definitely darker. This burnt orange is actually the regular heavy body acrylics, but the rest of my paints are the open acrylics. You can intermix them without any issues. The thing is that this will make it dry a little bit faster because there's no retarder or anything in there to make it dry slower. One way to compensate for that is to add some of the open thinner into the burnt orange. I'll just add a couple drops on top of it and mix it in. And that should give me more time for blending. You can also mix different brands of acrylics. I've mixed Liquitex with Golden and Winsor & Newton. It doesn't seem to have any impact at all. And most manufacturers say that you can mix different types of acrylics within their brand. So you can mix high flow acrylics with heavy body acrylics or open acrylics. It doesn't seem to matter. And Liquitex is the same way. You can mix the inks with the soft body acrylics or the heavy body acrylics. I have a course that covers all the basics of acrylic paints, palettes, and other supplies. I'm currently giving it away for free. There's a link to it in the description below. I got most of the background blocked in. I'll probably come back and smooth it out or repaint it. But I think the next thing I'll paint will be the mug, and that will show the difference in the different types of grays. As I said, this gray is kind of like a cooler gray. So I'll just take some of this gray over here and add just a little bit of that phthalo blue to it. It's not too bad. If I put some of that in there, can you see how that's like a cooler gray than what I have over here? You might need to go a little bit lighter and just a touch more of that phthalo. So the point here is all these colors that you think of as being just a pure gray actually has some color in it. I can especially see it when I paint this next to the pure white of the board. This section right here is a little bit lighter, so I could just dip into this lighter gray, and that makes a subtle difference. If I go straight into the pure white, it might actually go a little too light. The gray helps because it's not such a radical jump as like adding pure white to it. Now I need a darker version of that color for this section here in shadow. I'll take some of this color that's almost black, add a little bit of the phthalo blue to it. I think it has to go darker still. And that's actually pretty close. Let's see what that looks like. When you glance at this mug, you think it's gray, but it's kind of like a cool gray or like a dark bluish gray. I've got most of the colors blocked in on this mug. I'm going to put in some of the highlights. I find it helps to get all the values in before you actually start making corrections to it. And the reason for that is if I put these bright white highlights in here, it will make the other colors look darker. This isn't pure white, so I'll add some of that grayish color in there. But there's a fine streak down the left side of this mug. I think I see an issue with this background color already. If I put in the darker table color, it should be quite a bit darker than the background, and it's pretty much the same value. That's the thing I was saying about painting from a screen, is that the values are exaggerated. I'm going to take a break and eat lunch, and then I'll come back to it and work on it some more. What I've been trying to do so far is establish all the values. So as you can see, I painted in the background. It's a little bit too dark on this side, and I realized that this should be a little bit lighter. And the place where I left off was trying to figure out how dark the tea kettle should be. This isn't a pure gray, it's kind of bluish. So I started by establishing the whitest highlight, which would be the reflection from the light. And it has to go darker for the rest of the body of the tea kettle. As I said, the screen on my tablet can go much brighter than the white that you paint onto a board. So I have to adjust it as I go. And that's what I'm doing in this first stage, is just establishing all those different values and making corrections as I go. Once I have confidence in how dark and light everything should be, I can go in and put in the finishing details. As I mentioned in a previous video, I like to work in intervals, so I'll focus on this for a couple of hours, take a walk, have lunch, and then come back to it. That way I don't get bogged down, and when I come back, it looks fresh. It's easier to spot some of the problem areas when you come back to it. The color I'm using is Benzimidazoline Burnt Orange. It's available in different lines of acrylics. Here's Van Dyke Red from Liquitex. I know these are the exact same color because of the pigment code. This says PBR 25. If I turn this over, it has the same pigment code. The pigment code is the closest thing you have to a standard name for the colors. I did find it in other brands of oils and acrylics. For example, Cobra Water Mixable Oils uses the same pigment for transparent red ochre. Winsor & Newton Oils has it as transparent maroon. If you want to use this specific pigment, you might have to do a little bit of research. And the other thing too, like I said before, is you can intermix brands of acrylics. So if you're using a different brand of acrylics, you could just pick up the Van Dyke Red or Benzimidazoline Burnt Orange and mix it with your acrylics. Another option would be to mix it yourself. I should mention I'm using the green shade of phthalo blue, and that's PB15-3. There's also a red shade, which is a little bit different. As I said, I could neutralize the phthalo blue by mixing a color that's similar to the burnt orange. So this is the benzimidazolone yellow, and I can add a little bit of the quinacridone magenta to it. I think I need to pick up more yellow. And then I'll add some of the phthalo blue to it. That looks too green, I'll add more of the magenta to it. Now, I think the magenta is a little bit too strong. If I add a touch of that phthalo blue, you can see that it makes it a little bit more neutral. So I was able to totally neutralize that phthalo blue by adding the yellow and the magenta. But the problem is that it takes more steps. You have to get the ratio of each pigment in the correct amount. And that's why this color is so convenient, is because it's the perfect mixing complement. You just squeeze it out and you can mix it into the phthalo blue and make different shades of blue, and you can make it black or add white to it and make gray. So a lot of artists don't like using phthalo blue. I hope this helps you to tame it and incorporate it into your paintings. Once you figure that out, you end up buying large 5-ounce tubes like this, and I use it all the time. I have most of the colors blocked in. I still have to fill in a couple of sections. But once I get that done, I'll go back in and refine some of these areas. As I said, I usually repaint the background once I have all the colors filled in. I'm making the background lighter overall, especially at the top right. The coffee mug is the next section I'm focusing on. I mixed a lighter color for the left side of the mug, which makes it stand out from the background a little bit more. I then spent some time painting in the subtle reflections. For the towel, I thought I would make it simple, but then I realized that the tiny textures will add some variety. So I spent time building up the different layers. Here's the final painting. Up next, you can watch my video about how to mix black, which includes more examples of mixing complements. I also have a video about how to neutralize other colors. Thanks for watching.